The little friend beneath the eaves. It was a rainy afternoon in July. Ms. Lon, a retired schoolteacher living alone in a small house at the end of a quiet alley, sat by the window, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea, watching the raindrops trace their way down the glass. The rain brought with it a cold breeze and a familiar sense of loneliness. Since her husband passed away and her son moved to the city for work, the house had been silent, her only company the crackling voice of an old radio. Suddenly, amidst the sound of falling rain, she heard a faint bark, a soft, pleading cry. She opened the door and stepped onto the porch. There, curled beneath the fronds of a drooping palm tree near the gate, was a small, soaked puppy. Its tiny body trembled, its fur was a tangled mess of mud and dirt, and its eyes were wide with fear. "Oh dear, where did you come from?" Ms. Lon murmured gently, bending down and extending her hand. The little dog hesitated, then, sensing the kindness in her voice, slowly stepped forward and nuzzled her fingers with its cold nose. She couldn't bear to leave it out in the rain. She scooped it up, dried it off with an old towel, and gave it some leftover rice and braised pork. At first, she thought it was just a one-time gesture of compassion. But the next morning, the little dog was still there, waiting quietly on the porch as if it had found home. She decided to keep it and named him Muck, meaning ink in Vietnamese, for his silky black coat that shone beautifully after a proper bath. From that day on, Muck became her loyal companion. She talked to him like a friend, and it seemed as though he understood every word. Each morning, he would walk with her to the market and wait patiently outside as she shopped. In the afternoons, he'd sit beside her while she taught poor children from the neighborhood in the small free class she had been running for years. Muck never strayed far. He knew her routines, sensed when she was tired, or when pain flared up in her knees or chest. During her coughing fits or sleepless nights, he'd lie close, his eyes fixed on her, silently watching. The neighbors often joked, "Ms. Land's got a four-legged grandchild more devoted than most people." One late autumn afternoon, while watering plants in her garden, Ms. Lon suddenly felt dizzy and collapsed to the ground. A sharp pain struck her chest. She tried to call for help, but her voice was too faint. Inside the house, Muck immediately sensed something was wrong. He bolted outside, barking furiously. He ran in frantic circles around the yard, then jumped up and barked at the neighbor's window until someone came out. It was thanks to Muck's frantic cries that Mrs. Sow from next door discovered Ms. Lon lying motionless and called for an ambulance. The doctors later said that if she had arrived 10 minutes later, it might have been too late. After that day, Muck became known around the neighborhood as the little hero dog. But to Ms. Lon, he was more than a lifesaver. He was a light in the lonely corners of her life, a friend, a companion, a quiet warmth in the stillness of her days. That year, a local newspaper published a short article about the little friend beneath the eaves. The story spread online, touching the hearts of many. Some people traveled from the city just to meet Ms. Lon and Muck, others brought donations for her little charity class. But the most precious gift of all was still the same, Muck's loyal eyes watching her each day, eyes that spoke volumes of love and gratitude without ever needing words. Because sometimes, the truest love doesn't come with grand gestures. It comes quietly, on four muddy paws, on a rainy day, when you least expect it, but need it the most.